Welcome to the Pylon Cam YouTube channel, and welcome back if you are a returning viewer. We have our weekly power rankings video. We didn't get to do one last week. If you're new to the channel, try to put content out like this every week. I just started a new job, so my schedule has been a little bit hectic so far. But other than that, I think I finally got it under wraps. I think I finally got a handle on things, and we are back. We are back to getting content out every day. Yesterday we had our fantasy waiver wire video, and the day before that we had our mock draft Monday video, and today we have our power rankings video. And if you're new to the channel, the biggest thing I try to keep in mind when I do my personal power rankings is I try not to overreact. I try to look at how the team played the opposing team and what was the difference in level of competition. But with that being said, let's go ahead, get into the power rankings. And at rank 32, previously 32, we have the Detroit Lions. Just wanted to say this too. I'm not going to go through all of the previous records just because there was a gap between the power rankings for week 11 and now week 13. So, didn't have any power rankings for week 12. But I've adjusted them to where I think they should have landed for this week. So, going into this week, at rank 32, we still have the Lions. They just can't win games. Dan Campbell is slowly becoming a problem. I think Jared Goff is to blame for a ton of their woes, but I also think, like, if you look at the Lions stat sheet and you see, wow, their two leading receivers are a running back and a tight end, like, how much work does Jared Goff have to deal with? And how many games have they lost in the last seconds where their defense couldn't hold it together, where Dan Campbell is supposed to be at least somewhat defensively minded coach, has lost them games. So, I don't know what to do with the Lions. I don't know if Dan Campbell's the answer. They have building blocks for sure. Like, Penei Sewell is going to get better. He could be a franchise tackle. DeAndre Swift is a great player. They need a wide receiver. And if you're interested to see who I think they should draft, check out the mock draft video. But coming in at rank 31, previously 31, I have the Houston Texans. The Texans just dropped 18-13, I believe, to the New York Jets. Texans struggle, man. This is going to be, if you're a Texans fan, this is just going to be a rough season to just, it's almost over. Draft is coming. You're going to get more draft picks for Deshaun Watson. I think the future is bright. I think the Texans actually have a pretty good front office. I think they're going to be able to turn this around relatively quickly. I don't know if you'll be as good as you were 2 or 3 years ago when you had Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, like, in the AFC Championship game, but I think you guys will be more competitive than you think, sooner than you think, I mean. And then coming in at rank 30, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Patience is what I would say to Jaguars fans. Like, you have a good draft pick. You definitely have your quarterback. If you're a Jaguars fan and you're worried about Trevor Lawrence, I wouldn't be. There's really no team around him. His coach is a rookie just like he is. He's still trying to figure it out. He's committed to the team allegedly, so we'll see what happens. I think and if he were to leave, I think there's a lot of draw to come into Jacksonville, being that you have generational talent in Trevor Lawrence, and you have a pretty young nucleus, in my opinion, on offense. You have Laviska Shenault, DJ Shark, Cam Robinson, who you have on the franchise tag. I don't think he's a young piece, but that could be Evan Neal next year. You have a franchise tackle, and you have James Robinson, and don't forget about Travis Etienne. So there is a lot to work with on offense. I think they need the right coordinator, and they need the right coach, but I would hold out hope if you're a Jaguars fan. Coming in at rank 29, previously ranked 30. I'm going to say the previous ones that I remember from week 11. Previously ranked 30, we have the New York Jets. New York Jets just beat Houston Texans again. Another, like, rebuilding year. I think to the Jets, to me, it's kind of concerning when you have a defensive-minded coach and you're the first team in history to allow, like, back-to-back-to-back 40-point games. Not that they did that this week. I'm just saying, like, we talked about the coaching staff with the other three teams. Might as well touch on it here. I don't know if Robert Saleh is your guy. He definitely is a people's coach, players coach, I mean. But I would hold out if you're a Jets fan. I think Joe Douglas is definitely building the team right. And you have Seattle's draft pick, which looks to be a top 5 pick. I think it was in our mock draft. Is pick 4 right now. Pick 4 goes. Yes, pick 5. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the Jets, their defense, if they go defense, could be very good next year. And if they go offense, you could finalize that line and give Zach Wilson a chance. But I don't know, man. I don't think these bottom four have not moved all season. And I don't think they will. They'll just keep moving around within the four, if that makes sense. But coming in at ranked 28, sorry, so many mock draft videos, pick 28. Ranked 28 have the Carolina Panthers. Panthers are done. Like, they're shot. I said this in the last Power Rankings video. I'll have it linked in the description. But everybody got so hyped up over Cam Newton, and I'm just sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, well, Cam Newton just got beat up by a rookie. He's definitely not – his body is not better than Sam Darnold's in terms of athleticism, like purely in terms of arm talent. Maybe he's more mobile, but he can't throw the ball. He was, 5 for 20 with 2 picks against who did they just play this week? I forget. But the point remains, like, you just lost your best player again, and now he's out for the season because if you go on the IR twice, you can't come back. Christian McCaffrey is gone. You have no left tackle, and you have no quarterback because I think Sam Darnold is your best option. If you want to hear that or not, I really do think that. But I don't know, man. You're 5-7, but I do not think you are a good 5. I have a few teams that are with lower win totals that are above Panthers. I think they're going to sit here. They'll probably get some wins on the defensive side of the ball, but I don't know, man. I think they're pretty bad. I think they're just in a rough spot, and luckily, like, they're probably going to get a good draft pick. But then coming in at rank 27, Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson couldn't cook a 13-year-old's mom in an Xbox Live lobby. Like, that is how bad this team is right now. I don't know what it is about not throwing the ball at DK Metcalf, throwing it to Freddie Swain instead of DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. They have no protection on offense. Pete Carroll, all he knows how to do is chew gum. Like, this team is just everything they're supposed to be good at, they are not good at right now. And Russell Wilson, to his credit, like, I think Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not trying to discredit anything to him. But I've said this for a while, and not since I've been on YouTube, but to my buddies and, people I talk with football about. It really is a testament for how good Russell Wilson actually is that he could overcome all this stuff. And I think this year it just became too much. And it is a lot. It is like, it has compounded into an immense amount of things for Russell Wilson to overcome. And I just don't think he could do it anymore. Their defense used to be all right to the point where he could get on the field and make something happen. But now his protection has gotten so bad, their defense can't stop anything. And they sold their soul for Jamal Adams. So, like, it's done for the Seahawks. I don't know. I think they'll come back and win a few games and get us all hyped up again, but I think Pete Carroll's gone. I think Russell Wilson's gone. I think it's time to start a rebuild if you're in Seattle, but I don't know how you're going to do that when you have no picks. Ranked 26, I have this Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Steelers are trash, and it's no discredit to Mike Tomlin because I do think he is a top 5 coach in the NFL. It's nothing against him. Big Ben just needs to retire, and it's really hard, I think, in the Steelers' locker room because you have players like Cam Hayward who, like, want to go out there and practice and go 100,000%, and then you have Chase Claypool asking if they could play music during practice. Like, it's like there's no standard for the Steelers that the Steelers have always had as a franchise. They've always been a successful franchise. They've always had standards. Everybody used to be, for as long as I can remember, scared to play the Steelers because you knew it was going to be a physical game. Listen to any Tom Brady interview about the Steelers. Now it's like you're going to go play a bunch of people that you see on TikTok. Like, it's like this Pittsburgh Steelers team is not the Steelers we all know and are familiar with. And I think until they get, I think they need to change the locker room. And I think they need to get a quarterback. Nothing against Big Ben, but, like, his, the sun has to set eventually. Like, it's time to move on. It's time for him to retire. But anyway, ranked 25, I have the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Falcons are a little bit overrated, in my opinion. They are on they've won one game. They're 2-3 in their last 2 out of 3 in their last 5. I think without Cordero Patterson, this team literally has no hope. And I don't know if it's Matt Ryan or if it's Arthur Smith. I don't know what it is, but I don't know how they aren't getting Kyle Pitts more involved. And, like, I know he's getting targets, but I think they have to design more plays for Kyle Pitts rather than just throw the ball at him and hope he makes something happen. And sorry if I sound a little bit nasally or a little bit like I have a lisp. I have like a really bad throat. I don't know if it's an infection or something, but yeah, with Atlanta, I think they're way overhyped. I think they're really. I don't even know if it's overhyped. I just think they're overrated, and I think their record is severely inflated. They should have lost to the Giants week 3, I think, and they had another fluky win. I don't remember where it was along the way, but if they lose those 2 games, they're 3-8. So I don't know really how good this Falcons team is. I had a theory at the beginning of the year that Matt Ryan was hurt just because he wasn't throwing the ball nearly as aggressively as he had in the past. And I don't think, even if you look back to last season, I don't think his body had regressed that much that fast. But it switched for a while, and then now he's back to, like, not throwing the ball down the field, which in return is, like, collateral damage to Kyle Pitts, who is your 4th overall selection, which I think is, like, a big deal. If you're not getting him involved, you essentially wasted your first-round pick. So I think, I don't know. I think they're just a really overinflated team. But coming in at rank 24, I have the Saints. The Saints are now on a 4-game losing streak. They have lost 4 out of their last 5. Taysom Hill is going to come in this week. Maybe that'll spark something for them. I think Sean Payton is just the fact that they have 5 wins and are nearly 500 is a testament to Sean Payton. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and I think he doesn't get nearly as much credit as he should. I don't know, man. I just think the Saints, they have no Kamara. Maybe they win some games if they have Kamara. Maybe they beat the Eagles. But I think they need Michael Thomas back. This is going to shock some, but I think they need Jameis Winston back. Jameis Winston was not playing bad football when he was there, and I think the whole offseason, obviously, and everything, you're game planning as if Jameis Winston is your quarterback. This is no knock against Trevor Siemian, but, like, your playbook is designed for Jameis Winston. It's not designed for Trevor Siemian, and Jameis Winston has an incredible arm. He might not be the best quarterback, but he has an absolute bazooka for an arm. So I think the Saints are going to continue to struggle until next season. I don't think they'll stay this bad because at some points this season people have had them power ranked 13, myself included, as high as 13. But I just don't. I think with Sean Payton, they'll always be a well-coached team. I just think this year there's too much for them to overcome to be a competitive football team, if that makes sense. And maybe if Alvin Kamara comes back, they can win some games and possibly sneak into the wild card because they're I think 1 game out, or they're in the wild card right now. I forgot. I haven't looked in a while. I just know that Washington's in, and they have the same record. So I think the Saints, they need some love, but they deserve to be at rank 24, in my opinion. Coming in at rank 23, I have the Chicago Bears. I think even though they're coming off a win, it was against the Detroit Lions. And I understand they didn't have Justin Fields, but I would argue that they weren't any better with Justin Fields. I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. I love Justin Fields. It's just not his year. They need to get an innovative either offensive coordinator or head coach. Probably going to look for an offensive head coach, being that Matt Nagy's on his way out. But with someone like Justin Fields' skill set, you need to get someone who's going to maximize his talent, and they have not done that. And I think, well, Matt Nagy hasn't done that. I think they're going to probably clean house, and I think they have a lot of good pieces to rebuild with Justin Fields, obviously. Tevin Jenkins was their second-round pick. I forget if they have 2 first-round picks, but I think their second-round pick hasn't played all year. He was in training camp, had a back injury, and he's been out all year. Darnell Mooney seems to be a great wide receiver. Maybe they could get another one in the second round because Allen Robinson's going to leave. They have David Montgomery, who's an exceptional running back. And Khalil Herbert looks like just as good of a running back. So that's great in a rebuild because then you don't have to pay David Montgomery anything and you have someone ready to go the year you let Montgomery go. So that's great news. And they have Tariq Cohen, but I don't think that means anything. I'm just saying that because they paid him. Foolish. I think the one of the Achilles heels for the Bears is that they never have cap space and they're never paying a quarterback. It makes no sense. I think they just need to learn to hold money rather than spend it unnecessarily. But anyway, that's enough about the Bears in a power ranking video about their future. But yeah, coming off against a win, they lost to the Ravens 2 weeks ago, I think. And then they beat the Lions last week, barely, but I think it was 16-14 was the final score. But anyway, coming in at 22, I think previously 19, I have the Eagles. Like I said with the Saints, like maybe the Saints beat the Eagles if they have Alvin Kamara. It was a very close game. But talking about this week, Jalen Hurts, I've been very much as fair as I could be with Jalen Hurts, very in the middle on Jalen Hurts. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. You can't play quarterback if you can't throw the ball. And when you're playing a game and the opposing crowd is chanting at you, throw the ball, like that is not a good sign. I just think that throwing 3 picks could have been more. A lot of them were, 2 were dropped on that final drive. But, like, they also could have won the game. So, not totally banging Jalen Hurts, or throwing everything on him. But I think that if they go off script, they will lose football games. Like, they just need to stick to the RPO and running it down the middle like that. I know it's dumb, but, like, that's what wins them games. The Giants went into that game begging Jalen Hurts to throw the ball, and they were able to force 4 turnovers, 3 picks, and a fumble. So I don't know, man. I think the Eagles, I've had the Eagles around 22 all year. I think the highest I moved them up was 19, which was 2 weeks ago. I just think that they need to get someone who could throw the ball. And, like, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts can't develop into that, because I think he possibly could. Like, let's keep in mind he only started 4 games last season, and this is his first real season. And let's be fair, he's played above expectations. Nick Sirianni, I've said this since the beginning of the year. If you go back to any podcast, any video, I have said Nick Sirianni is a good coach because he has game planned for Jalen Hurts, and it's worked to an extent. But I think when they go off script, that's when they start to fall apart, and that's what's going to happen if you have Jalen Hurts throwing the ball more than 20 times, more than 15 times a game. 15 is kind of low, but you get my point. I just think that the Eagles are the hardest team to address because their identity is in the run game, and they have to stick to it. If they don't stick to it, if you play away from your identity, stray away from your identity, you're going to lose football games. Coming in at rank 21, New York Giants. The New York Giants have been probably the most unlucky team all year. If you didn't know, they have the most players on IR of any team in football. They have lost their left tackle for a while. They have different receivers every week. And now Daniel Jones is potentially out a week to week with the neck strain. It just seems like they can't catch a break. Even like when they finally get their legs under them, they just trip and like something happens. I think they are a very competitive football team. They have a very good defense. It's finally coming back to form of what it was last season. I'd like to see them play Miami this week at full strength, but that probably won't happen if Jones doesn't play. But I think it is a game they could definitely still win, even with Mike Glennon. They're going to have all of their skill position players back, which Daniel Jones hasn't had since like week 1. So maybe with Mike Glennon, he was throwing the ball when Kadarius Toney had 200 yards. Maybe they could make something happen. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's just an unlucky tale for the Giants. I think they've had just a very crummy year. And their offensive line is trash. I think it went up from 32 to 31. So there you go, Giants fans. Coming in at rank 20. And I think this team probably could be higher. But this is at the point of power rankings where teams are actually a lot closer than you would think. Like, I don't think there's too much of a gap from Washington and then, like, potentially the 11th best team in the league. But Washington keep wanting to say pick at rank 20. They just beat Tampa a few weeks ago. Then they beat Carolina by a thread. Barely beat Carolina. And they beat Seattle this week. I think Washington, if their defense could keep playing how they've been, they could definitely sneak into the wild card. And if Dallas continues to lose games, maybe win the division. You got to keep in mind, like, I think the only team that cannot win that NFC East division is the New York Giants, being how far back they are. I know it's only one game, but it's a huge difference when there's only 4 weeks, technically 4 weeks left? No, 6 weeks, because it's 18, and we're going into Like, I'm counting week 13. But I think that I don't trust Taylor Heineke. I haven't trusted him all season, but he's been playing good ball, and I got to give credit where credit's due. But I think, actually since Chase Young got hurt, they've been playing better. I'm not sure if there's any correlation between that, but they've been playing better since Chase Young got hurt. And I think that was against Tampa Bay. He tore his ACL. I think going into the rest of this year, Washington has a chance. I think Taylor Heineke's got to continue to play normal football and regular football, as in, like, don't lock on to Terry McLaurin and just say, screw it, I'm going to throw him the ball. Or same thing with Logan Thomas. Like, keep spreading the ball around, keep throwing to your checkdowns, keep playing good fundamental football, and I think Washington will act. I think Washington really has one of the best rosters in football, especially on offense. A lot of people don't give them any credit, but I think their O-line is fantastic. Terry McLaurin, to me, could be a top 7 wide receiver if he had good quarterback play, and I think that their running backs are fine. Like, it's not 1980. You don't need Barry Sanders to win football games. Like, they are very well balanced, and I think if their defense could kind of just play to how they were last year, just slightly, because last year their defense was, I think, ranked 2. They just got to play towards that, in that direction, and they will keep winning football games. So I think Washington's got a shot, definitely to make the playoffs. I think they are the 7th seed right now. But anyway, coming in at pick 19, rank 19, I have the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins have won 4 straight, and I think it's kind of been a fluky run, but I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I've been very impressed by Tua. Tua's been playing great ball, and their defense finally has showed up. Like, a lot of these surging teams, their defenses are coming to play. Like, Giants, Washington, not the Giants are a surging team. It depends what they do this week. But Washington and Miami, they've all been playing well. They have all been regaining their 2020 defensive form. And a lot of people kept saying, because I've been doing a lot of mock draft stuff and, like, doing a ton of draft research, a lot of people want Miami to take an edge rusher. And I'm, like, thinking to myself, they just took Jalen Phillips. And I think in this 3-week win streak, Jalen Phillips has gone from, like, 1 sack to now he's in second place for rookie sack leader at 6. He's behind Micah Parsons and he's ahead of Azeez Ojulari. Like, if they could keep it going, like, if this defense could keep going, and if Tua could keep playing the way he has with 1 wide receiver, like, let's not forget that they have Devontae Parker and Will Fuller, who don't play. Like, these people never play. It's just Jalen Waddle, Myles Gaskins, and Tua on offense. That's why I'm really impressed with Tua, is because he's overcoming a lot right now. And, like, their defense is coming to play, and it's kind of been a fluky. I don't want to use the word fluky, but it's been, like, a very, what's the word? They've had a lot of things go in their favor with, like, injuries and stuff, but not trying to knock the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins definitely deserving of the 19 spot. But if their defense can keep playing and Tua doesn't screw up, like, they could keep moving up, and they could possibly find themselves in the wild card for the AFC, because they're only 1 game back right now. So we'll see. But at pick 18, out of the Cleveland Browns, they're 6-6. They barely beat the Lions. Like, barely beat the Lions at 5-13. Or they beat them 13-10. And like I said at the beginning of the video, the first thing I look at is the competition level and how do they play each other. The Ravens, definitely a better team, in my opinion, but not too far of a better team. The Ravens threw 4 interceptions, and the Browns scored 10 points. Like, I don't know, man. I don't want to go. Every time I talk about the Browns, like, I want to rant. Because, like, people like Tua or Daniel Jones, they're in, like, a what do we have scenario if your franchise is looking at them. But you can make viable excuses of, like, for Daniel Jones, different coordinate, 3 different systems, a 30th or lower O-line each year, and everybody's hurt around him. Tua, you have the Deshaun Watson rumors. Your offensive weapons are constantly hurt. Your defense isn't playing well. Brian, I think the Deshaun Watson rumors are the biggest thing. And he has overcome the Deshaun Watson rumors, which is so incredible to me. He has not skipped a beat, so shout out to Tua for that. But Baker Mayfield, you have one of the best rosters in football. You have the best running backs in football. You have a phenomenal defense. And you have the 2020 Coach of the Year. I hate people saying, oh, well, he's gritty. He's playing through injury. It is week 13 in the NFL. Every player has some sort of injury. The only reason we know about Baker Mayfield is because he can't go a press conference without bringing it up somehow. And he doesn't bring up just one, he brings up multiple. If they are that bad, don't play. Don't jeopardize your team's playoff chances and get better. Because according to your own teammates, there's not a big difference between you and Case Keenum. So if you want to salvage your own personal stock for other teams around the league that might inquire about you this offseason, get healthy and play good football. Don't play hurt and continue to play like crap and then blame something. Like, I don't know how many times you have to point the finger at something else. Like, if you're a franchise quarterback, I think a borderline franchise quarterback, I think the last person or people group you want to blame is the fans. There was that whole quote about, oh, well, those fans booing me or whatever are probably the same type of fans that can't keep quiet when we're trying to operate an offense. Like, that is not what you want to say when you are having a rocky season. Like, I don't know, man. I think the Browns are my dark horse for Deshaun Watson. I think they don't need any picks. I think they just need to pay who they got to pay and go get Deshaun Watson, and they'll be Super Bowl favorites, in my opinion. But anyway, rank 17, I have the Denver Broncos. I was a believer in the Denver Broncos when they were 3-0, and I still have believed in the Denver Broncos. The only thing to me of like why I can't get on board, like I would say the biggest difference between like the next three teams and all the teams above them is consistency, and the Broncos are the complete opposite of consistency. Their defense will be locked down, and Teddy Bridgewater will look like the most efficient quarterback in the NFL, or they'll score 4 points on offense, and they'll have someone drop 30 points on them. They're just all over the map for me, but they have been playing well, and they are they have 3 wins out of their last 5, and a very impressive win over the Chargers to that. Like, I think they have the right pieces, and like the Washington football team, they have a very well-balanced roster. They have great running backs with Melvin Gordon and my personal favorite running back from this class, Javonte Williams. And they have a phenomenal receiving core with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick. And their line's not bad. And their defense, their secondary is exceptional. I think they need an edge rusher. But aside from that, like Teddy Bridgewater's getting it done. You just want to see more consistency out of them. They're 6-5. They are in the wild card right now. Or they're a game out. There are so many 6-win teams in the AFC. There's I think there's 4 or 5. But yeah, I mean, like, the AFC is that close, and the Broncos definitely could squeak in. They could potentially win the division. The division is up for grabs. They're 1 game out. The whole division is 1 game out, except for the Chiefs, who have been scary the past few weeks, but they've had some lucky wins the past few weeks as well. They barely beat the Giants. So I'm not totally sold on the Chiefs, but we'll get to them when we get to them. But with the Broncos, they'll continue to move up if I could just see more consistency out of them. That's all I want. I think you just need to keep feeding Javonte Williams, run an efficient offense, and let your defense work. Like, that's all you got to do. At rank 16, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are 2-3 out of their last 5. They just had a very impressive win over the Cowboys. They've had a lot to overcome this season with John Gruden, Henry Ruggs, the whole thing. I think they need to get back to their identity, and I think while doing that, they need to learn to not be afraid to run the football. I would like for the Raiders, I'd like them to give the ball to Josh Jacobs a little bit more. I think, like, they have the weapon. Like, this is the kind of the struggle for the Raiders, so I understand why they're kind of struggling to figure it out. Luckily, they were in a good enough spot where they have, like, maybe 1 more week to figure it out. You were a very dominant air raid offense because you had Henry Ruggs, who could completely open the field up because he was so fast and could just take the top off. But now that person's gone. and you're feeding Zay Jones, who apparently is a stud. I think he was a second-round pick a few years ago. Hunter Renfro's a phenomenal wide receiver. He just dropped 100 yards over Thanksgiving. But they did just lose Darren Waller, and their line isn't really that good enough to have an efficient 20-touch game from Josh Jacobs if you're just giving him 20 rushing attempts. So I feel for the Raiders, but they could definitely still figure it out this season, and I think they have a little bit more consistency than the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are 3-2 out of their last 5, and the Raiders are 2-3. But coming in at rank 15, this is a team that I have said has been slept on all year because they probably had the unluckiest first 3 weeks of football anybody could have imagined. Dalvin Cook fumbles and they go to overtime and lose the game, and then they miss a chip shot field goal against the Cardinals. So I don't know. The Vikings have beaten themselves and they have lost in probably the unluckiest fashions in the universe. But I think they're still in a very good spot, being that they're 5-6. They are in the wild card as of right now, I think, or they're one game out. But who do they just play? They just played the 49ers. I think the 49ers are a very good football team. That is a very even game. That could be a potential playoff game at some point. But I think they need to just keep feeding Justin Jefferson. And now that Dalvin Cook's back, I don't think you shy away from the run. I think you feed Alexander Madison. I've said this multiple times. I'm going to keep saying it. I think Alexander Madison is the best backup running back in the NFL. And I'm not including running backs like Kareem Hunt or Nyheim Hines or any running back that is seeing 40 to 50% of the touches. I am talking exclusively of if Dalvin Cook plays, Alexander Madison is getting 15% of snaps. But Alexander Madison is a 3-down running back and would be a starter for most of the teams below them. I don't understand why more teams didn't inquire about Alexander Madison for a trade. That kid is really good, and their offensive line has played slightly better throughout the past few weeks. I think if they could continue to progress on defense and not stray away from their offensive game plan, they will continue to win games and be competitive, because I think the real story with the NFC is a lot of these 5-win teams, they're going to stay at 5-win teams, and we're going to see probably 2 risers come out of the NFC. And in my opinion, that is going to be either Washington, the Vikings, or the 49ers. So with all of that, I think the Vikings need to just keep the course and not beat themselves. They need to win their home games they have left, and they need to be competitive on the road and keep running the ball and keep throwing the ball at Justin Jefferson and just play smart football. I think they're way better than a power-ranked 15 team, in my opinion, but they have to prove it. And then coming in at rank 14, I have the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has opened my eyes a lot to how good of a coach he actually is this season. I think he's pretty overhyped now that this season has came and went. I think he's kind of like a mean girl. He's very passive-aggressive towards Jimmy Garoppolo. He completely nixed Trey Sermon, who they traded up to get, but then got saved because they drafted Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round. But anyway, their defense is playing well, and they're clicking on offense. That's the key. Jimmy Garoppolo cannot miss a step here. The whole season is on the crux of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I have said it in a podcast episode the week they played the Rams, that if they lost to the Rams, just blow it up. Just let Trey Lance play the rest of the season, get him snaps, get him tape for next year. But now they're at a position where they've won 3 games. They were 3 wins when I said this. Go and be as competitive as you can. But the most important thing to me right now, if I was a 49ers fan, or if I was Kyle Shanahan, I have to keep the locker room intact, and I have to just give the ball to my playmakers. I can't be a mean girl and get mad at Brandon Ayuk for not knowing a play in practice and then just never give him the ball again because I want to prove a point. You are very much in the playoff hunt. Go out, play games, and win games, because I don't think they have the toughest schedule down the stretch. I have to look at it, but I'm not too sure. But the 49ers have a very good roster. They have very good playmakers, and they have good Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad quarterback. I think he's just in a situation where he knows he's not wanted, and it adds a ton of pressure for him. And I think if Kyle Shanahan just kind of reassured him and said, like, hey, like, we want you here. We want you to finish this season. We want you to mentor Trey. Like, keep going. It would make Jimmy's life a lot easier. But they are winning games regardless, so I'm just going to leave him at that. Coming in at rank 13, Tennessee Titans. I have gotten ridiculed a lot for my take on the Titans that they were going to suck after Derrick Henry left, and I've been absolutely right on that. They've lost 2 games since his departure. Or no, they haven't sucked, but they've beaten teams that they should have beaten with or without Derrick Henry. They lost to the Texans, and they just got absolutely slaughtered by the Patriots. The thing to me about the Titans where I kind of would back off is if they were still scoring a good amount of points against good competition. Like, they have A.J. Brown, they have Julio Jones, and I know that A.J. Brown didn't play this past week, and I know Julio Jones has been on IR, but it's not even that. It's Ryan Tannehill's play, which really kind of grosses me out about the Titans. He's just had a very much, like, I don't think anybody really wants to admit this, but he has had a down year. And I don't know why people don't want to say that. Like, I get you can make the excuses for him. And, like, the Titans do have and this is why I would make the argument that the Titans are built for Derrick Henry to be their team, to be their offense. I don't know how the statistic has changed, but the last time I checked it, because someone was arguing with me that, like, oh, the Titans aren't going to suck because they have a good O-line, which is true, but it's not true. The Titans, when I last checked, had an 8th-ranked run-blocking O-line. Their pass-blocking O-line ranked 29th. Like, that's my point of, like, they're not built for Ryan Tannehill to be throwing 35 times a game. They're not built for that. They're built for Derrick Henry to run all over people and carry the ball 30 times a game. Now you have A.J. Brown out and you have Julio Jones out, and your defense is kind of taking a step back. It was playing hot for a minute, but in those 3 wins, they've won 3 out of their last 5, but their first 3 out of their last 5, but they lost their last 2 out of their last 5. So they're 3-2 if you split it, but it's been concentrated, and it was when A.J. Brown was playing. And I don't like to lower teams because of injury, but they weren't playing well with A.J. Brown. And luckily the Titans will make the playoffs. I do believe that. Once Derrick Henry's back, they're going to move back up to a top 10 team. But until then, in a power rankings video, I have to put them where they've played to. And to me, that's rank 13, and I really don't think that that's an unfair rank, being that which teams are above them. And then I pick rank 12, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. I think the Chargers, I talked about consistency. This is a team that really struggles in the consistency department. It's really hard to say that word with my throat. But they play super well and they beat the crap out of the Steelers and then they lose to the Broncos. So I don't know if that's a testament to the Steelers weren't a good team and the Chargers, who are a team in a different class, just beat up on them, or the Broncos are a better team than I'm giving them credit and the Chargers should be lower. So if you have an opinion on that, comment below on either of those 3 teams, but I don't know. I think Justin Herbert sometimes is kind of hitting that moment or that point in his career, kind of like a lot of young quarterbacks do. We've seen probably the most notable of this moment being Carson Wentz, of where you feel like you have to play hero ball all the time. And I think when the Chargers get down, whether it's in the first quarter or the second quarter, sometimes Justin Herbert has a tendency to abandon the game plan and just try to play hero ball. And I'm a huge Justin Herbert fan. I had him as my QB1 over Joe Burrow the year they came out in, what was that, 2020? But I just think he's got to stick to the game plan, and they need to run the ball more. They are very effective at using Austin Eckler in the passing game, but I think you got to just stick to what you're good at, and that is throwing the ball, but you got to play fundamental football and run the ball. Brandon Staley had a quote about why they run the football, and it's to tell other teams that there's an element of physicality to their team, and I just feel like they haven't done it enough. I don't know if it's because they don't want to hurt Austin Eckler before playoffs, or they just don't trust Larry Roundtree enough, but I think if they want to win football games, you got to run the ball more, and you just got to stick to your script. I think that's the biggest thing when teams like the Eagles, who could be better than they are, lose games, is because they don't stick to their script. They have their quarterback just go haywire, and try to do things that there isn't in their wheelhouse. So do with that what you will. That's my stance on the Chargers. I think they could be a very good team, but they also play themselves out of a lot of games. Rank 11, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. When the Bengals O-line can run block, they will win games. When the Bengals O-line can't run block and Joe Mixon has 27 touches for 60 yards, they will lose games. Both have happened. This past week where they demolished the Steelers, Joe Mixon had 160 yards. Weeks where they get destroyed, like when they played the Browns, Joe Mixon had under 100 yards. Joe Burrow, I mean, this isn't a knock against Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is a phenomenal quarterback, but you don't want to ask him to do more than he has to. And I think sometimes, like Justin Herbert, he tries to play hero ball and he ends up throwing picks. I think you need to be able to, especially if you have a young quarterback, you need to be able to run the ball at a successful rate, and you will win games. You will remain a playoff team. And I think the Bengals are a playoff team. The one thing I want to see from them is their defense continue to show up and their offensive line continue to be able to successfully run block. That is what's going to keep the Bengals in the playoffs or out of the playoffs, in my opinion, and potentially win the division. They're only a game out, so we'll see what happens. At rank 10, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I have been a Colts supporter, all season. They were my pick to win the division. I don't think anybody had a harder 4-game stretch than the Colts at the beginning of the year. 4 or 5-game stretch. If they had been able to split with the Titans, they would be in a way better spot because they would both be at 7 wins. The Titans would have the edge because they would be at 7-4, or no, 7-5, and they would be tied. But they're 2 games back. I think they're a way better team than the Titans, with or without Derrick Henry. Jonathan Taylor's playing at a level that is on par with Derrick Henry. And I think Carson Wentz is playing very, very good football, and nobody really wants to give him any credit, him or Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's having a breakout year. I think he's close to 1,000 yards already. And Carson Wentz, I think, is a bottom 5 quarterback when it comes to turnovers. Like, he hasn't thrown that many interceptions. They're playing good football, and nobody really wants to give them credit. They're going to make the wild card, and they're going to upset a lot of teams in the playoffs. I promise you. I will clip this for when playoffs come. But the Colts are a very good fundamental team, and they do a lot of things right. And when they gamble, when Frank Reich wants to gamble, they more often than not hit their gamble. I'm talking about fourth down or 4th and goal. A lot of times they'll convert or score. So power to Frank Reich. Keep doing what you're doing. The Colts are going to continue to win games. At rank 9 or pick not. Oh my God. Rank 9. I have the LA Rams. The Rams went winless in November. They are on I think a 4-game losing streak, if I'm correct. 3-game losing streak. And they have struggled against teams over 500. Prime example. They beat the crap out of the Texans and the Giants, but they haven't beat a single team over 500 in the month of November. I forget every team they played. Did they lose to the Cowboys? I forget who they played the past few weeks. But they have been on the struggle bus, and Matt Stafford deserves way more heat than he's been getting. I think Matt Stafford is a reason they've lost a lot of these games. I also think they're trying to get too cute. Like the difference between the Rams and the Bengals and Chargers is the Rams are getting too cute from the head coach position. The Bengals and Chargers are trying to play hero ball with their sophomore quarterbacks. They need to stick to the script and play fundamental football. They need to give Darrell Henderson more touches, and they need to just play to their strengths. And I think I want to give the Rams some grace because they lost their Swiss Army knife from Robert Woods to an ACL tear. And the week against not the 49ers, maybe it was the 49ers. No, it was the game. They had one game with Odell Beckham where he had one practice, and they had another game with Odell Beckham getting more justice to the playbook where he caught a touchdown this past week. I forget who they played, but they need to find their groove. They need to keep feeding Cooper Kupp. They need to run the ball a little bit more, And Matt Stafford needs to just chill out. Because I think he's also playing hero ball, but Sean McVay's also trying to get too cute with his playbook, in my humble opinion. Coming in at rank 8, I have the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are on a 2-game losing streak. They lost to the Chiefs, and they just lost to the Raiders. To me, this is put up or shut up time for Dallas. They do this every year. They are this super caliber, high caliber football team, and they just start losing games. I never have believed Mike McCarthy is a good head coach. I think he has the 2 best coordinators in the NFL and one of the best rosters in football, so he doesn't really have much to do. But I don't know what their issue is. I think their defense is kind of taking a step back. They just let the Raiders drop 30-plus on them, and the Chiefs blew them out, and everybody wants to make excuses for Dak. Oh, he didn't have his left tackle. Oh, he was missing Amari Cooper. Okay, but you still have Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, who are both 1,000-yard receivers. You still have Ezekiel Elliott. I get you're missing your left tackle, but you need to be able to win those games if you're a franchise quarterback. You need to be able to at least be competitive in those games. And their offense was nothing against the Chiefs. It didn't even show up to play. I think they only scored 3 points that game. Anyway, coming in at rank 7, I have the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills are another team where it's hey, it's put up or shut up time for this team because they are now. I mean, I called this in our playoff in our last podcast episode when we went through my playoff predictions. The Patriots are going to win that division. Patriots are the only team I have been basically right about every single step of the way all year long. The Bills, to me, if they were to play the Patriots this week, they would not win that game. Do you know what the point differential in net points for the actually, no. The points for the Bills and the Patriots are? The differences? Who do you think has more points if you had to guess? You're probably saying the Bills right now. The Patriots have scored 10 more points on offense than the Bills have. I get that the Patriots haven't had their bye, but a lot of those points have come in a bigger magnitude the later the season got. We'll talk about the Patriots when we get there, but my point is the Bills are not the best team in their division right now, and they are struggling against 500 teams. And the biggest thing to me, if you were to ask me why, is because their inability to run the ball, which is why I think they're going to draft a running back pretty early on, probably in the second round or third round. But they need to be able to run the ball to win games. It's they're so the Browns are one-dimensional because they know teams know they're just going to run the ball. The Bills are one-dimensional in that they know they're going to throw the ball. They just healthy scratched Zach Moss. Zach Moss was, I think, their third-round pick last year. So, not as in 2021, but 2022. I don't know, man. The Bills need to figure it out and figure it out fast because they're 3-2 in their last 5. The Patriots are 5-0 in their last 5. So, and the Dolphins are even 4-1. Luckily, they got enough cushion on the Dolphins, and I don't think the Jets are going to catch up. But hey, anything's possible in this season. But yeah, Bills at 7, and then at rank 6, I have the Chiefs. I have to give the Chiefs credit because they're on a 4-game win streak, but I still don't trust them. But what I will say about them is their defense had featured the most rookie starting players of any team in the NFL. And with rookies, you need to give them time for them to develop and get better throughout the season. And I think those rookies are finally hitting their stride. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are finally playing fundamental football and not doing no-look behind-the-back passes every other play. But I think they're starting to do everything right, whereas some of these teams ahead of them are starting to deteriorate. And if anybody has playoff experience or big game experience, Super Bowl experience even, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They know how to steer this ship back in the right direction. I just want to see a little more of it because to me they're really on a 2-game win streak because they beat the Giants who they should have beat and they struggled to beat the Giants, and they beat the Raiders in the midst of Henry Ruggs being kicked off the team. So I want to see more consistent, more of this from the Chiefs, and I'll be more firm in my stance on that they are a good football team. I think they are a good football team. I don't think they're the best team in the AFC though. Coming in at rank 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens. And you could be sitting there saying, Mike, they just threw 4 picks against the Browns. How are they a good football team? They won that game throwing 4 picks against the Browns. They won a game with Andy Dalton. Or not Andy Dalton. What's his name? the backup quarterback for the Ravens that is just like Tyson Williams. Is that his name? No, that's the running back. Dude, he looks Huntley. I forget his first name, but Huntley. They won that game with Huntley, and they are able to just like that's if I was a coach or like a hype man for the Ravens, that would be our theme of the year is overcoming things because they have overcome losing J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, the two biggest parts of their offense, whether you want to admit it or not. Obviously, Lamar is number one, but in a run-first offense, losing your premier running backs, that is a huge deal. They lost Marcus Peters. They have been losing players all along the way, and they have beaten teams without Lamar Jackson. They have beaten teams with Lamar Jackson making mistakes. They are a fundamentally sound football team that is very, very well coached. Very well coached. I think that the Ravens, I said it in the last Power Rankings video, and then they went out and lost to some booty team that I forget who it was. But they're like a team that I did say are going to Super Bowl. I think they will at least make it to the AFC Championship, depending on how their playoff path pans out, if that makes sense. Because I think this year especially, probably more so than any other year in football, matchups matter. Your matchup matters more than anything. Because I think if the Ravens ran into the Patriots, they're cooked. But if they ran into the Chiefs or the Bills, not the Bills. I think the Bills will have actually a good chance against them. But the Bengals, they'd have a good shot against them. Against the Colts, I think they'd have a very hard time. But that's my point. And I think the Ravens are just a good enough football team where it doesn't matter. They're going to overcome it. But coming in at rank 4, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I've been saying this all year. If you've watched any power ranking video, it's not a matter of are they good enough. It's a matter of they need to when they get their players back because they've been playing with injuries all along the way, predominantly in their secondary. That's why people are just picking them apart. They lost Vita Vea for a few weeks so people could run all over them. Jonathan Taylor I think he had 100 yards and a touchdown on them. And Antonio Brown has been out. Chris Godwin has missed a few games. Mike Evans has been really their only guy. Luckily for them, Leonard Fournette has shown up, and if they could run the ball how they have been, they're going to be scarier to play in the playoffs because last year in the playoffs, you saw the emergence of playoff Lenny, and then Ronald Jones got phased out of the offense, and you kind of could expect them to be like, oh, they're just going to throw at us. But now that's not the case anymore, and they could run at you just efficiently as they can throw at you. So that's where I'm kind of like, all right, the Bucs are for like now unquestionably for real. They've been for real for me for the whole season, but now like I don't really think you could even argue that are they for real, in my opinion. But coming in at rank 3, I really want to put them higher, but the team above them I can't move down because of circumstances. And I'll talk about that when I talk about them. But the Patriots are on a 5-game win streak. And this is the thing with the Patriots of like why I've been saying they are going to be competitors this year. This is back to preseason when I was talking about Ramondre Stevenson taking over Damian Harris' job, which is going to happen next year. You look at how the Patriots started the year. Mac Jones was throwing the least amount of intended air yards or average attempted air yards of any quarterback in the league. Mac Jones just finished Week 12 averaging the most intended air yards or attempted air yards. I don't remember if that's the exact stat. At 8.3, which was the highest in the NFL. They are now throwing the ball down the field. They can run all over you. They are very efficient in the red zone. And their defense had every player that was out last season from COVID back. And their rookies, Christian Barmore and Ronnie Perkins, are studs. Their secondary, J.C. Jackson, stud. There is no weakness on the Patriots team. The biggest weakness I would say the Patriots have is Mac Jones' inexperience. But who does he have coaching him? Oh, the most experienced head coach of all time. There is no weakness on this Patriots team. That is why they are 5-0, and they aren't even showing like they're not really even playing close games. They played a close game against the Chargers, and that is the last close game I can remember. If there was another one, please comment below. But I can't remember a close game they played in this 5. They're actually on a 6-game win streak. They have won 6 out of their last 6. So If you don't like the Patriots, I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand why people don't. Because like as a sports fan, if you played sports as a competitor, how could you not appreciate just greatness? That's my stance on it. Like with Alabama, it's the same thing. A lot of people hate Alabama, and I understand it if you're like a Clemson guy or an Ohio State guy, someone who's always competitive. But as someone who played sports and like knows what it takes to be that great, or like knows what has to be put in to be that great, how do you just not appreciate it? Same thing with like LeBron James. Like whether you agree with LeBron James being the best basketball player of all time, it doesn't matter. Just appreciate him while he's there. Like look at Kobe Bryant. Appreciate Kobe Bryant while we had him. It's the same thing with the Patriots and Bill Belichick. Just appreciate how this team will always be good because they have the best head coach of all time. But anyway, coming in at rank 2, I have the Arizona Cardinals. I know the Cardinals they lost to the Panthers, but they just came out, and I forget who they beat this week. But I can't move them down. I can't in my right mind move them down until they lose a game with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins playing at the same time. Kyler hasn't come back, and neither has DeAndre. So we'll see what happens. I think the biggest weakness to me about the Cardinals is coaching. I just don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury in big moments. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury can be successful in the playoffs. And I could be wrong, but he wasn't successful in big games in college. Like he wasn't successful ever in his coaching career in playoff atmospheres or championship atmospheres. And by the way, he coached Patrick Mahomes in college, if you were wondering. Obviously, that Patrick Mahomes is the same as the Patrick Mahomes we see every week now, but I mean, the talent was always there. Didn't bring it out of him. So we'll see. I think the Cardinals are the most talented roster in football. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury has to do too much. Where he has impressed me is how he's been able to coach games on defense. That's where I'm impressed with Cliff Kingsbury. But on offense, you got A.J. Green, Pro Bowler, one of the Bengals' best wide receivers of all time besides like Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco. And then you have DeAndre Hopkins, who's a top 2 wide receiver in the NFL right now. And then you have Kyler Murray, who's an up-and-coming elite quarterback. I mean, I don't really think he has to do and they have an elite offensive line. I don't think they have to do too much for Cliff Kingsbury to coach a good game. And then at rank 1, I have the Green Bay Packers. I know they just lost to the Vikings, but people don't understand that they just beat the Rams. Excuse me. But people don't understand that for the past 2 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has been playing with basically an entire second-string offense. And you probably didn't even notice. But that's all I'm going to say about them. Thank you for watching my Power Rankings video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Do all that good stuff. It helps out the channel a lot. And check us out on Instagram and Twitter. We post stuff pretty often. I used to say all the time, but that's just not the case anymore. Don't want to lie. And check out our podcast on Spotify. New podcast coming out on Thursday, which is tomorrow. And let me know what you think. Leave your comments below, and I will see you in the next one.
I'm sitting in the crib dreaming about Learjets and coops, the way Salt shoots and how to sell records like Snoop. I'm interrupted by a doorbell, 3:52. Who the hell is